Welcome to another pitch deck review live, where I take a look at a pitch deck and see what works and what could do with a little bit of extra love. Today, I had one pitch deck that was submitted by a company called Vassa Hebin. I'll be taking a look at this deck and figuring out what's working about it and what could be improved. And after that, I have another deck that we're going to take a quick look at as well. And yeah, let's get started. So, this pitch deck is actually really interesting. It is trying to make an argument for changing the skincare industry using agri waste. It's an interesting take on a market that historically has been pretty wasteful. There's a whole bunch of things that happens in cosmetics, which is packaging waste. The actual products are often created in ways that aren't particularly sustainable. And it's refreshing to see a company that wants to take a swing at fixing that. I already have a little note to myself, which I hope the deck will answer, which is I don't know to what degree people actually care about this. The skincare industry and cosmetics has been around for a long time. And I think I would love to think that people care. But economists love talking about this, right? So they talk about the difference between the stated desire and the actual, like the things people actually do. A joke here is two economists walk past a newsstand and one says, yeah, it's very silly to buy lottery tickets. And the other said yes and goes inside and buys one, right? The idea of that people have a very firm thought about what they want to do and what makes sense versus what they actually do can be pretty different. Anyway, so let's dig into this pitch deck. The first thing is natural skincare. The natural skincare market is in a state of hypergrowth. The company says that it's grown from 7 to 13 billion. Now, I would love to see some good data on this. There is a reference at the bottom to a website. So if I were doing actual diligence on this, I would check that out. The thing here is this is not actually a problem statement. A market in hypergrowth, objectively is not a problem. That is an opportunity. And so I still don't really understand what the problem is here. It says that the beauty industry is a competition with food for agricultural land and that puts more and more pressure on resources. Yes, almost certainly and objectively true. But I'm not sure if anybody actually has that at the front of mind when they're making buying decisions. Or certainly, I'm not sure enough people are doing that in order to build a business around this. If the natural skincare market is in fact doubling over the next 10 years, it's doubling, that is exciting. But, a $7 billion market, I would like to dig in quite a bit more to figure out whether or not this is, what is driving that growth? How is this happening? What are people saying? And a lot more in-depth around the ins and outs of what the market is doing. So that's a little footnote here. It's not like a deal breaker, but it's definitely something that I want to take a closer look at. In the next slide, they're talking about their impact. So the impact slide is saying that they're doing upcycled circular cosmetic ingredients from agri-food waste. There's a lot of text on this slide. And I actually think that this is not talking about the solution as much as the impact of the solution, right? I want to know a lot more about what that actually means and what the impacts are and how that actually looks. And the fact that it has measurable impact, circular action plan, and food waste framework, those are not part of the solution. Those are the drivers. This is more like the why now slide. So if you're thinking about this in the context of why now, the macroeconomics and the legal frameworks for the circular economy action plan and the food waste framework, those two things are actually really good things. Those are like a rising tide raises all boats type situation. But strictly isn't really part of the solution. I want to know what the solution is to this problem that they've posed. And the issue that we have here immediately is that the problem wasn't really a problem. The solution wasn't really a solution. And now I'm starting to doubt whether this team is a sophisticated and experienced startup team. As far as the order of slides goes here, I really like this. Having an opening slide that sets the pace, then talks about the problem, then talk about the solution, and then talk about the product. Very good approach to how to do this. Of course, the content of the slides has to be right, but at least the order makes sense to me. Now, they say that they have a product here that says that it uses 2% upcycled supercritical C buckthorn extract. I don't actually know what that is. and it uses 45 to 90% of upcycled ingredients. Now, 45 to 90 is a very, very big span, right? I want to know what the goal is of this company, because less than half is a very big difference from 90%. So I'm starting to get curious immediately. And now here it says a whole bunch of different things that are all pieces of the puzzle, but some of these all speak to different parts of the journey of this company. So specifically, we say here, innovation-led with biotechnology, fermentation, and green chemistry. Cool, but that sounds like a product development or product production piece. That's not really part of the product itself. Then it talks about perimenopause focus. Great, perimenopause is something that a lot of people go through, and it makes sense to have that as a target market, but this is a target market rather than the product itself. Then it's a sustainable, zero waste, certified cradle to cradle and upcycled. Awesome. But again, not technically really part of the product. And then we have a community and support section here. Somehow, we've now gone through 3 slides. We have the problem slide, the solution slide, and the product side that don't really deliver on the promise. I like to think of a slide title as a promise, and then the rest of the slide gets to answer or fulfill that promise. I've been kind of let down 3 times now with 3 topics, 3 pieces that we really want to talk about, and that don't really get delivered. And now I'm starting to get frustrated, right? I'm like, if I am an investor quickly skimming through this deck, I'm like, okay, what's the product? What's the solution? What's the problem you're solving? And 3 times in a row, I'm like, this doesn't really answer the question. Where my mind goes with that is that this founder is going to be hard to work with. Like, if I ask a very straight question, like, what does the product do? And this is the answer, I'm like, this is not helpful. Like, I still don't know how many products they have. I don't know how many product lines they have. So there's lots of little pieces to the puzzle that are a little bit confusing. Okay, let's go on. After the product slide, they are going into competition. And interestingly, they're here talking about the competition as in Finland, the US, and the international. They're talking only about the products that are doing natural or upcycled products. Now, that is really important to talk about, right? It's really important to talk about those competitors. But those are definitely not the only competitors that this company has, right? Skincare and cosmetics are huge. They're huge markets. Getting to a place where understanding the broader market is important. Now, the real competition slide here, I think, is probably all skincare. You know, Nivea, L'Oreal, Max Factor, all of these like various products all should probably be on this slide. Limiting the competition field just to upcycled ingredient companies doesn't really make sense to me in a world where I haven't really been convinced yet that upcycled ingredients and circular economy cosmetics are a thing that are here to stay and are going to grow. You know? So the story is not fully clicking into place for me yet. Okay. Next up, we're talking about the market size. So this is where we kind of talked a little bit earlier here. They're saying they're launching in Finland to test the market. I would like to know why. Now, my assumption is that the reason why is that the company is based in Finland, in which case that makes a lot of sense. But they haven't really told us that yet. And so now I'm like, okay, if this is a US company, they're talking in dollars here, why are we suddenly talking about Finland as a specific market? And I'm also curious about, the total addressable market, the natural skincare market. I don't think that's true. Like, if you are bold and you really want to go after a huge market, your total TAM, the total addressable market, is all of skincare. You know, it doesn't matter if people are doing natural skincare or not yet. Like, ultimately, that is the market. And so my sense here is that the market, the TAM, is going to be much, much, much bigger. And from there, I want to know what the SAM and SOM is. What is the market you can address and what's the market you can obtain? Instead, the story we get here is we're talking about the TAM, which is the total B2C skincare market, which I don't think is the right TAM. Then we're talking about the skincare market in Finland, which I honestly don't give a crap about, right? I am an investor based in the US. Like a $65 million a year market isn't that big. And if you capture 5% of that market, you're talking about $3 million worth of sales. $3 million is not interesting to me as an investor, right? That's too small. And, the fact that the natural skin care market in Finland grows 8%, I don't know why I care yet, right? So the story continues to kind of fail to deliver on the promise here. And so now I'm starting to struggle. I'm continuing to struggle with why does this company make sense to me? Okay, let's see. Okay, from here, they're talking about the business model. They're talking about direct sales to SMEs as a B2B business, and then a B2C, so a direct-to-consumer, presumably, market for doing this kind of work. Now, they're saying that they have margins between 60 and 70%, which is pretty decent. And they're talking about a customer acquisition cost of 85 euros. Now, note, suddenly they've changed from dollars to euros here. In the previous slides, we're all talking about dollars, I think, US dollars probably. Now we're talking about euros. And that switch is a little jarring for me because I still don't really understand why we're talking about euros. They have done something interesting here, which is say that the lifetime value to CAC ratio is 2.9. Now, that is a pretty decent ratio. So the lifetime value of a customer is about 250 euros. The customer acquisition cost is about 85 euros. That's a decent business model. The thing that scares me on this slide is the B2B thing on the left of the slide. It's good direct-to-consumer or B2C business is very complicated, right? And you need a very specific sales skill set of building an e-commerce site, doing marketing. Like marketing any sort of B2C product is a huge deal and a lot of work. B2B sales, presumably, well, I can actually read this straight up, direct sales to SME beauty brands. Okay, great. So how are they going to do that part of the sales? So now I'm like, okay, to build this company successfully, they have to build out a very strong marketing operation that can successfully build this company as a direct-to-consumer or subscription or B2C model. Now, B2C isn't actually descriptive enough for me here. I want to know what kind of B2C company you're going to be. The fact that they have a customer acquisition cost here is encouraging, but I kind of want to see how many sales they've done and that kind of stuff. So this is a good beginnings of a business model slide, but it definitely brings up some questions for me, and I'm curious, what is happening from here. Okay, they now have a roadmap, right? So they're saying they have a whole bunch of ingredients and formula prototypes ready, and that they're about to start launching next year, then launching 4 more the year after, and then do B2B sales in the EU in 2026, and then launch a B2C brand in North America in 2027. Now, that's a pretty long plan. That goes 4 years into the future. And for a startup, that's a very, very long time. Typically, for a roadmap, my assumption here now is that they're going to raise enough money to fulfill this entire roadmap, right? And so I'm like, okay, a company that's raising for 4 years into the future is pretty bold. But also, if all they have is ingredient and formula prototypes, that sounds risky, right? I want to know if there's the equivalent of FDA testing needed on this. Do they need to, what kind of safety testing do they need to do? What is it actually going to take to get these things to market? I don't know enough about this space, but those are questions that pop in my mind. But now I'm curious. Okay, this roadmap is interesting, but if you're raising money for the next 4 years, that's a huge fundraise, presumably. So it gets interesting. From the roadmap, we're going to the team. Now, as I often say on these pitch deck reviews, team is going to be the single most important thing about your startup. I really want to understand why you and nobody else could start this company. What do you know about this space that nobody else knows about this space? And we have 2 team members here. We have Alina and Gabriella. Now, Alina has sales strategy and marketing, including 10 years in beauty marketing. That is awesome, right? That means that they have the marketing side of this hopefully nailed down. Now, my question is beauty marketing rare? I think probably not. And so Alina on her own isn't enough to have oh my God, I have to invest in this company. This is definitely the most incredible company ever type vibes. And then I take a look at Gabriella. Now, Gabriella is a PhD candidate, which means she's currently still working on her PhD. Now, I think PhDs are pretty intense, right? They're probably pretty full-time work. And so the question becomes, how much time does she have to focus on this? The slide itself here says that she focused on upcycled ingredient extraction and formulation, scaling production, and lab setup. Okay, awesome. So that means that she has kind of the scientist side of this, but nothing about this says that she's done this before, right? She's a PhD candidate and a cosmetic scientist, but nothing here says that she used to run a lab. This slide doesn't say anything about whether or not she has experience with running this at scale or building out this kind of thing. And that looks like they're hiring a head of operations, which makes sense, and especially if that head of operations is focused on production. But yeah, this team has the beginnings of being a good team, right? You have the marketing piece and potentially the science piece, but it still doesn't say, oh, I used to run prototyping for L'Oreal. That would be a really good team member. Or I used to do scale manufacturing of cosmetics for a major brand. Like, what I really want to see here is a team that says, okay, I've brought new products to market and I really know how to do the marketing piece. And I have an incredible deep experience in taking a cosmetics brand from 0 to 10,000 units a month or something like that, or 100,000 units a month, or 1,000,000 units a month. Like, it feels like this slide, like, I see what they're trying to do, and it doesn't make me lean forward and go, okay, yes, break out the checkbook, this is the right team. There's also no links to their LinkedIn, so I can't go and click and do some more research myself. And so this is making me a little worried again. Like, it's kind of confirming the bias I've had throughout the rest of the slide deck, which is that the right beginnings of the slides are here, the right data points are here, but it doesn't like fully follow through. Okay, so this is actually smart. So when a team isn't like a complete slam dunk, stacking the deck with advisors and other people who have the experience that the team maybe wish they could have in the core team but don't have yet, that's a really good thing to have here. So let's take a look. Their advisors and strategic partners include Rajiv, Johanna, and Gerd. And there's a couple of PhDs in there. There's a food waste expert in guidance development. Okay, so that's Rajiv seems to be the person who does things on the supply side, taking food waste and upcycling it into ingredients. So that's an important piece of the puzzle for this company. And so I'm glad to see this person on here. The fact that he is a UN WHO appointed expert, the fact that he has a PhD, this seems like a really strong advisor to this company. Johanna, a business coach and founder, ex-CEO of natural cosmetic brand. She's going to be a very important piece of the puzzle because she's done this before, right? She's already built a national cosmetic brand. And so that de-risks it partially, having her as an advisor on there. And finally, there is a bioengineering department, fermentation, which is a R&D partner for this. Now, again, I don't know these folks. I haven't clicked on their LinkedIn. There's no links to their LinkedIns. But I can see how that fulfills pieces of the puzzle for what this company needs to do in order to be able to deliver. It's a helpful slide to have on here. Next, they are talking about their financing needs. So this is the asking use of funds slide. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we're talking about a 4-year plan that they had as their roadmap. Now, for that 4-year plan, they're only raising 300 euros. So now I am confused. So they had this roadmap for 4 years, and now they're raising this. And I don't know what they're planning to raise next. The slide does say 12 months of financing. So it looks like the 350,000 will finance 12 months worth of running the company. And they are saying here that they have a plan that is based on a set of percentages. 25% spent on manufacturing. That seems low to me. 25% of 350,000 euros is not actually a lot of money for manufacturing at all. 20% on staffing, that makes sense, wages. And then they have two things at the right here, which is customer acquisition and content and marketing. Now, customer acquisition, different from marketing, makes me think that this is paid acquisition, right? So that's advertising. That makes sense. What doesn't make sense to me is that there's nothing on here that is R&D, right? So you're building a brand new company with products that don't exist in market yet, but you have manufacturing, staffing, customer acquisition, and content and marketing. There's no R&D budget. And so I fear that this company is raising way too little money, that they're spending too little on manufacturing, that there's no R&D budget here, that I don't really know what content and marketing means in this context. I imagine that is marketing content. And that they have a 35% earmarked for advertising. This does not strike me as a business that is set up in a way that makes sense, just based on these numbers. The other thing is, using percentages for this kind of thing is usually pretty high risk. And the reason I say that is that on the whole, I would want to know what the company is trying to accomplish with their fundraise, right? And typically, I would advise people I work with to do that as milestones. So I have a separate talk, I'll link to it below, about the asking use of funds. But typically, what I would want to see here is like, okay, we're raising 350,000 euros, and with that, we will deliver 4 products. We'll have this and this many customers. We will launch our e-commerce thing. And so you have kind of metrics-driven goals related to your financing. And that means that as an investor, I can get a good picture of, okay, if this company is delivering on those goals, does that mean that I can actually see them raise the next round of funding? Right? And so again, this is all the pieces of the puzzle are here, I think, but it's coming up a little bit short. This is not like, these are not founders where I think, yes, they definitely have their shit together. They're ready to do this. And without that, I'm like, this is a high-risk investment. You know, they're in a high-risk space doing a high-risk thing. And this deck doesn't so far make me confident that I'm backing a team that knows what it's doing. They have their closing slide. So it says, Circular Biotech Beauty. I like that. Biotech Beauty has a good ring to it. Want to get Circular together? Haha, good pun. Get in touch with the email address and a link. And then at the top here, there's a bunch of logos. Redrick, Prototron, EWA, EIT Food, Tartu Biotechnology Park. I don't know what any of those things are. And they haven't come up in the pitch deck so far. And so now I'm a little bit confused again. I'm like, what are these logos doing here? What is the relation here to them? And the final piece, there's a QR code down the bottom here. I can absolutely hand on heart guarantee you that no investor is going to point their phone, the QR code, to look at something. It just doesn't happen. People typically sit and review decks on a computer. Like, you're not going to get out a second device to check the QR code to find out what's there, especially if I have no idea what it's pointing to. Presumably it's their website, but it's not that big of a hardship to type in wnwn.skin into a browser, or make it even easier for me. There's already one link on this slide, right down here where it says linkedin.com. Add a second link. Just give me something to click on. That makes it so much easier. The final slide here is a closing slide, which is the same as the opening slide. I actually kind of like that. And presumably this is where you take your questions. Now, I think overall, this is not a bad slide deck, but it leaves a lot to be desired. It has a lot of things in here where I'm like as an investor, I want to invest in something that has a decent chance of extraordinary success. And this deck doesn't fill me with confidence that the founding team is experienced as startup founders, has a depth of experience in bringing new products to market. You know, having 10 years worth of marketing experience in skincare, that is one thing, but bringing something new to market and doing e-commerce, those are all slightly different skill sets. And I want to make sure that the marketing side of this is sewn up with relevant experience so they can basically hit the ground running. On the production, manufacturing, product formulation, all that kind of side, I'm also not convinced, because that piece of it doesn't seem to be fully covered within the team or within the slide deck. And then so now we're in a place where I'm not they have a marketing person, but I'm not sure they're a slam dunk. They have a product person, but I'm not sure they're a slam dunk. And there's no business people involved in this yet. Nobody who has like a specific startup experience or anything like that. And so overall, I think this deck is setting off a whole bunch of warning bells with me. The good news is it's actually pretty easy to fix. You could very easily make sure that the problem slide is an actual problem slide. You add a why now slide that shows the trend towards natural cosmetics, and then you can talk about the solution and the product in more detail. Now suddenly you have a slide deck that makes a lot more sense. And from there, if you can tell the story of the founders in a way where you go, oh wow, these are extraordinary founders that I definitely want to put my money behind, backed by a team of advisors that deeply understand the market and can be counted upon to really drive this forward, I think that's putting you into a really good place, actually. So a good start that could do with a fair amount of work. But I think even within that fair amount of work, a lot of the fixes that are needed are pretty easy to do. They're just storytelling fixes. The next slide deck is a slide deck I tore down for TechCrunch a while ago called Culture Pulse. And it's a pretty interesting deck. It's very short, and it has some interesting pieces in it that we can learn from. So let's take a look. Okay, so Culture Pulse. Now, I tore this down many months ago. I haven't looked at it since, and so I'm actually coming back to this with relatively fresh eyes. And I'm immediately slightly confused. Make your message resonate. There are so many different types of messages, and I still don't really know what they're talking about here. Is this a message, like, is this a text message? Is this marketing messaging? Is this advertising? If I'm looking at the right here, it shows Reddit post A/B testing, text analysis, and resonance score. Now I'm suddenly thinking, okay, this is probably something to do with advertising. But you would make my job so much easier and reduce my cognitive load significantly if you just tell me, like, what message is this? Is this make your advertising message resonate? Is this make my job easier? Put me in the right frame of mind to really understand what we're pitching here. Okay. Resonance revolutions. Companies often make decisions by counting likes and views to measure sentiment. Culture Pulse helps you capture beliefs and motivations of your customers so you can predict their buying behavior and cross-resonant messages. Okay, so sentiment analysis is not new, and I still don't really know what we're analyzing here. Like, how do you capture the beliefs and motivations of customers? Like, are we looking at their LinkedIn posts? Are we looking at their social media? Are we looking at their... I don't understand what it is that we're looking at here. So analyzing customers into whether or not they are product buyers or lifetime buyers or likely to complain is great, but I don't understand what the data source is. And so I continue to be a little confused about what this company is actually trying to accomplish. Next slide, product. I don't really know what this slide actually represents. This seems to be like a why now slide. It's like a capture of like where something is going, but it's not entirely clear. And so I'm not sure what part of the story they're trying to tell here, other than like maybe the time is now and this is what we're doing. So that's great, but that actually becomes a solution slide. And I don't actually really know what the problem is yet or who this is aimed at. Slide 3, Culture Pulse is a marketplace that enables marketers to conduct research and audience testing more quickly in a safe environment. Okay, so this is for user research. Great. Well, then say that, right? We shouldn't have to get 3 slides in before I understand what the product is. It's a user research platform, I think. Great. Do it more quickly. Do it in a safe environment. Brands can gather and analyze data in all major languages. Cool. So these are features of a product. I still don't entirely understand who this is for, other than this is for brands doing market research, but okay, fine. Business. So this slide is very hard to read. Like this kind of off-white on a blue background is, I'm here on a full screen, but remember a lot of the time you're going to be on a screen share, which degrades the quality a little bit. I can't really read it on this screen in a window here. And I don't think any of you have a fighting chance of really reading this either. That's a problem from a design point of view. But also, we're talking about SaaS marketplace, pricing, customers, beyond sentiment. The title of this slide is business. And I don't really know what that means in the context of a pitch deck. I'm not sure what I'm looking at here. But I think it's like an encapsulation of the business model. So they're saying they're a SaaS marketplace. That makes sense. They're talking about their pricing. They're talking about their customers, and they're talking about some of the advantages and some of the reason for choosing them, i.e. more than 30 years of research. All of that makes some degree of sense to me, but it's okay to have different slides for these things. You could have a business model slide that talks about the SaaS marketplace and the pricing. Then you could talk about the customers separately to explain what the go-to-market will be and that kind of thing. And then the beyond sentiment, etc., those are your value propositions. And so breaking those out separately in order to clarify the story further is probably a better idea than shoehorning all of this into a 10-slide deck. Okay, customers. So they have customers on the left and media on the right here. Now, media is typically a bit of a vanity thing, right? It says New York Times, New Scientist, Vice, Reflect, I don't know what that is, and the BBC. Now, I don't know if that means that this has been mentioned by the BBC, if it's being used by the BBC. I don't really know. Like, this slide is confusing to me because it doesn't really say what their interaction is with each of these. I feel like this is a good voiceover slide. Like, if you pitch and you talk about, oh, let me talk about what we do for the Research Council in Norway. Let's talk about what we do for the University of Cambridge. Now, I don't know what Me, Prism, or Minds is. Like, I don't know half of these media brands. And so, like, this slide, like, it doesn't do anything for me if I'm looking at it in isolation. So think about this. Like, if you are using a pitch deck to pitch over, then you can give context, and that's great. But in the context of this, like, I'm reviewing it as a pitch deck that I maybe received as an investor, this slide is kind of worse than useless because it doesn't say anything. I want to know how much of these customers are paying you. I want to know what they're using it for. I want to know whether or not they're going to grow, right? So it's the beginnings of something, but it doesn't quite close the loop on that. Roadmap. Year 1, launch the SaaS product. Year 2, the SaaS product is an evolving tool. Year 3, hiring a sales manager. Not a great roadmap. Again, like with the previous pitch deck, I want to see SMART goals. I want to see specific, like, launch the SaaS product, right? Wait, it says actually launch the SaaS product and prepare for the launch. Now, I'm not sure why it is in that order. They're launching it first and then they're preparing for it. Like, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't say anything about what the company is actually going to do in order to launch the SaaS product. I also don't really know what the SaaS product actually does. So I think having a product roadmap with main features that show, okay, we're launching this, then we're launching this, and it will unlock this for our customers is probably a much better way to go. Hire a full stack developer, sure. But as an investor, I don't give a crap if you hire a full stack developer or not. What I care about is what that developer is going to help you deliver in terms of features, in terms of product, etc. This roadmap isn't helpful for me. What I would much rather have seen is a set of goals, like, okay, we are launching this thing and we'll have this and this many customers, we'll do this and this much revenue. That is useful, right? Or we're doing these tests and figuring out if the customers want this, that kind of thing. That is actually a way of thinking about the roadmap as something that de-risks the company. Like in year 2, quarter 1, the SaaS platform is an evolving tool that will be updated with new features, tools, and modules. Yes, of course it is. Because it's a product. It's always under development. It's always doing something. So they've basically used 3 little lines of text there that says nothing. I want much more specificity in pitches in order to really understand what is the nugget, what are you trying to accomplish, and how does that, to me as an investor, make this company less risk and higher value? How do you deliver greater value to customers? And this part of the story just doesn't really tell that. Then there's a team slide, which tells me nothing. I see that there's a bunch of PhDs, 7 years as growth hacker, 7 years as product manager, like names in isolation without specific, like, why are these the right people for this company? I don't really care that the CEO has a Doctor of Philosophy from the University of Oxford. Yes, that is absolutely an achievement, but nothing about this company says that a Doctor of Philosophy from Oxford is the right person to start this company. Similarly, this other guy has 2 PhDs from Princeton. Again, super impressive, but I don't know what the PhDs are in. I don't know if they're relevant, and having a PhD doesn't automatically make you a good startup founder. I don't know if this is really helping me as an investor think, yes, this is definitely the right team. 7 years as a growth hacker, 7 years as a product manager. Yeah, but in which industries? For which companies? Make this relevant. Like, I want to know how this is relevant to these specific market, this specific company, this specific everything. This slide just isn't very good. It doesn't have links to the people's LinkedIn profiles. There's a lot of people on here. I am terrified that a company this young has 2 co-CFOs. Look, I don't want to be funny, but CFO roles start being more relevant at Series A, Series B, maybe earlier if you're in fintech. But this is not a fintech play. This is, as far as I can tell, a user research play. The fact that a user research company has 2 CFOs is a massive red flag to me. I want to understand why this is the best team to start this company, and this slide does nothing to help me along. They're looking to raise 3 million euros with 1 million already committed. Great. I like the clarity. It's simple. It's clean. It's great. Nobody ever made a decision because of a number. They need a story. This is the closing slide for this company, for Culture Pulse. And I kind of find it hilarious because this slide deck doesn't have a story, right? We're talking about a challenge here. You know, this is a company that could potentially be valuable, but there is no traction. Like, I would have loved to see it. They say they have a bunch of customers. I would have loved to see how much are they spending? How much are they using it? How many research things are being run? Show me some charts. Show me some graphs. Show me something that makes me believe that this is working. This deck is full of ideas, and I love a good idea, don't get me wrong. But I want to see that these ideas are working. And especially if you're going to be out there raising 3 million euros, you know, it's not a huge round, but it definitely means that you should have something, some level of de-risking, some level of product, some level of something that shows, yeah, this is definitely a company worth backing. And so far, there's not been a lot to reassure me on that. Thank you all for coming. It was wonderful to host you and to talk pitch decks with you for a bit. It's December, and I'm probably not going to do... Oh, I have one more thing, actually, which is... Boop. I have AI-powered pitch deck review. So if you liked today's review and you want to get... some feedback. We've built an AI tool that helps founders get some feedback. You can get it on hire.pub/AI. I look forward to seeing y'all next year. Have a beautiful holidays and Happy New Year.